All right, today we're going to talk about one of nature's weirdest and honestly most brilliant survivors, the sponge. I mean, you look at it and it just sits there. It seems to do absolutely nothing, but inside it's hiding this incredible secret weapon. It's basically a living, breathing plumbing system, a total masterpiece of biological engineering. Seriously, think about it for a second. This animal can't move. It doesn't have a mouth to eat, no stomach to digest, and definitely no lungs to breathe. So, how in the world does it do, well, anything? How does this super simple looking creature manage to stay alive? Well, the answer is just so elegant and it's incredibly effective. The sponge basically built an entire plumbing system into its own body and relies on a constant flow of water moving through this wild network of pipes and passages. So, this network has a name, of course. It's called the Canal System, or if you want to get technical, the Aquaferous System. And this isn't just some feature, it is the defining feature of all sponges. You could even say it's not just a part of the sponge, in a lot of ways it is the sponge. It's responsible for pretty much everything it needs to do to survive. Okay, so let's really dive in. We're going to treat this system like the superpower it really is and break down exactly how it all works. Now, to make this super clear, we're going to focus on one specific type of sponge called a sycon. Why? Because it has this really organized, kind of complex version of the canal system called the Syconoid system. It's just a perfect example to walk us through this whole process.
All right, before we actually follow a drop of water on its journey, we need to understand the pipes themselves, right? So let's take a quick look at how the sponge's body is even built to make this incredible system possible in the first place.
The whole secret here is in the folds. A sycon's body wall isn't just a flat sheet of cells. It's got an outer layer, an inner layer, and this kind of jelly-like stuff sandwiched in between. But the really clever part is that the entire wall is folded back and forth on itself. Seriously, just like an accordion. And it's these folds that create the different canals we're about to dive into. Okay, now for the fun part. Let's follow a single drop of water as it takes a trip through the sponge. This is really where all the magic happens. So here's the roadmap for our journey. You can see the water comes in through these little pores, flows through a whole series of canals and chambers, and then finally gets pushed out a big opening at the top. So let's get started and look at each one of these stops along the way. First stop, the ostia. These are basically thousands of tiny little pores all over the sponge's surface. Think of them like little entry gates. And what's super cool is that these gates have bouncers. They're controlled by these special muscle-like cells called myocytes, which can actually contract to open or close the pores. So the sponge can control how much water it lets in. Okay, once the water is through the gates, it flows into what are called the in-current canals. Remember those accordion folds? These are the channels created when the body wall folds inward. They're just simple hallways, really, lined with flat cells, and their job is to get water from the outside deep into the sponge. But, and this is a key detail, they're dead ends. The water hits a wall and can't go any further straight ahead. So if it's a dead end, how does the water get out? Well, it has to pass through even smaller pores called prosopiles. They're just tiny little doorways in the wall that connect the in-current canals to the next room on our tour. And passing through that doorway brings us to the absolute heart of the whole system, the radial canals. These are the channels formed when the body wall folds outwards. And listen, these are not just simple passageways. This is the main event. This is the chamber where the sponge does everything. It feeds, it breathes, and it powers the entire water current. Let's just pause and compare these two for a second, because it's pretty clever. The in-current canal, it's just an intake pipe. It brings water in, and that's it. That end. But the radial canal, that's the engine room. It's lined with those special powerhouse cells we'll talk about in a minute, and it opens up to the center of the sponge. It's a brilliant design, forcing the water to go exactly where the work gets done. So, after all the important stuff happens in the radial canal, the water needs a way out. It exits through another opening, this one called an apopyle. And just like those entrance gates, these exit doors are also controlled by those muscle-like myocyte cells. This gives the sponge an amazing amount of control over the whole flow. Now, all of this used processed water gets dumped into a big, hollow central cavity called the spongocoel. You can think of it like a big collection tank, or maybe a chimney. It's just gathering up all the water from all those thousands of radial canals before it's finally shown the door. And that brings us to the final exit. The journey ends at the osculum. This is that one big opening you see at the very top of the sponge.
All that collected water is forcefully shot out of the osculum, which is super important. It carries away all the waste and pushes the used water far away so the sponge doesn't accidentally suck the same dirty water right back in. Pretty smart.
Okay, so we've followed the path of the water from start to finish, but there's a huge question we haven't answered yet. What's actually moving the water? What's the engine that's driving this entire system?
Well, the answer lies inside those all-important radial canals. The walls are lined with these incredible cells called choanocytes, also known as flagellated cells. They are so critical to the whole operation that scientists often just call the canals flagellated chambers.
And this is how they work. Each one of these choanocyte cells has a tiny whip-like tail. That's the flagellum. And we're talking thousands upon thousands of these tails all beating together in rhythm. That coordinated beating is what creates the current that literally pulls water through the entire sponge. They are the engines. But wait, there's more. They also have this little collar that acts like a net, trapping tiny food particles as the water flows past. So they're the engine and the dinner plate all in one. Okay, so let's zoom out for a second. We've seen this incredibly intricate system of pipes and pumps, all powered by these tiny cellular engines. What does it all add up to? Why is this such a genius solution for survival?
Because this one system does pretty much everything. That constant flow of water, it brings in tiny food particles for nutrition. It delivers dissolved oxygen so the sponge can breathe. It carries away all the waste like carbon dioxide. It even helps with reproduction by carrying reproductive cells into and out of the sponge. It is, quite literally, an all-in-one life support system.
When you think about it, for an animal that's stuck in one place, it can't hunt for food, it can't run away from its own waste, this canal system is the ultimate evolutionary hack. It literally brings the world to the sponge. Food, oxygen, even potential mates, they all get delivered right to its doorstep. And then it conveniently takes out the trash for it. It's just such a powerful reminder that the most complicated solution isn't always the best one. Sometimes the most brilliant designs are the ones that solve a bunch of problems with one single, elegant system. The humble sponge and its living plumbing system, it's just a masterclass in doing more with less. And it makes you wonder, right? What other lessons in incredible efficiency